Hey folks, it's October 26th, Sunday. It's a beautiful day out here today. So last night I was involved in a panel discussion with the Common Front in the AFL about the Notwithstanding clause. So a little bit of discussion here. What prompted this? So as you know, the teachers have been on strike for 3 weeks. And why did the Notwithstanding clause come up? Well, because the government has threatened to use it against them. So first off, what is the Notwithstanding clause? The Notwithstanding clause is a draconian piece of legislation that is in our national constitution. It's in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and it allows provinces and the federal government to suspend rights under the Charter so that originally intended so that provinces could maintain their rights and have control over their destinies, I guess. But it seems more often than not it's used to try to maintain bigoted and terrible decisions. So what does it do? The Notwithstanding clause can be used to suspend your Section 2 fundamental rights. The big one for unions is freedom of association, but there's also freedom of expression, religious rights, other things in there. They're your basic fundamental rights that all the other rights spread from. And then it can be used to suspend your legal rights. So your access to the court, your access to legal defense, and your humanitarian rights. Things like being discriminated for age or gender or all of those different things. So it's not a very good piece of part of our charter. It's draconian. Not many governments have anything like that. I don't like it. So I think the reason that we're talking about it is because of the teacher strike. The teacher strike, although wages are a thing and all that other things are a deal, the simple fact of the matter is that class sizes are a problem. The reason why the government would want to use the Notwithstanding clause is because in 2016, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that class sizes are something that you can negotiate. And that the BC government at the time had tried to limit that capacity. I think it was in 2011. And the Supreme Court, again, ruled that class size is something that is negotiable. So here we are. So without speaking directly for the teachers, because I'm not a teacher, I am a postal worker, and I could be wrong, they want to negotiate class sizes. The government does not want a class size limit, but we're like I think we're the only province that doesn't have a class size limit. I think Saskatchewan is a partial limit, but we're the only province that doesn't have any limits. And the Supreme Court would find in their favor, if they ended up in binding arbitration, that they could negotiate the class size limit. So, what's the UCP to do? Well, the Common Front and the Alberta Federation of Labour, and specifically the Teachers Union, have decided what a red line is, what the line is that we cannot cross at all. And they've decided that that line is using the Notwithstanding clause to affect negotiations of any union. This puts the UCP in the bind, though, because if they, say, legislate the teachers back to work and put in binding arbitration, we know that they cannot, the arbitrator cannot be unduly constrained. So the government cannot put constraints on the arbitrator's decision, which would mean that class sizes would become part of the discussion. So that leaves them with the option of just binding arbitration, and then class sizes would be part of the discussion. So they haven't revealed if they're going to use the Notwithstanding clause in their back to work legislation, but it has been hinted at. I have also heard that things did not go well for them. I mean, 30,000 people were outside their offices the other day, twice this week, protesting what their decision is going to be. But where does that put us? So we are in a unique position to support the teachers because we are already on strike. Now, I'm talking to National about a support action or a day of support. but I'm going to leave that where it is because we have our own tactical concerns, and I'm not going to reveal anything. But my question is, if they call for a general strike, what are you going to do? Now, a general strike would be where as many workers as possible, union and not union, would stop work in support of the people, right? So I go back to 1919 in Winnipeg. It's been a long time since we had a general strike, where the strike went on for several days. A number of people were killed by the RCMP. A number of people were arrested for seditious libel. And many of those people were elected to government after the government collapsed. So they got to be very careful about what they do. But my question is where you're going to be. Will you use personal days? Will you participate in their action when you're not at work? Could it be more? That's up to you guys. That's not up to me. I may support the action and I may support the idea of a general strike, but I can't force you to do anything. You guys need to make that decision. But why would that matter to us? I think it's important to be seen. I think that we need to show our solidarity. There are 50,000 teachers who could be allies, who could be pushing the government for our cause. If we do go, regardless of whether it's with the national office, we're going to need to participate wearing our uniforms. We'll get the duct tape out, we'll put them over the Canada Post emblems, but I want to be in a large group of people wearing yellow amongst a sea of people wearing red, and I want them to know that we were there to help them. It also could affect the way governments look at all the situations. This could be the tipping point that we need. But I don't know if it's going to happen. And that's part of the problem that I have. I don't know if it's going to happen, right? Like I said, if the UCP end up just getting them back to work with binding arbitration, they'll probably take it. If the UCP puts a bunch of limits on their binding arbitration, they'll probably take it and then destroy the UCP in court. So really, I think the only case where this will probably happen is if they do use back to work legislation. Sorry, the notwithstanding clause. And if they do use the notwithstanding clause, I absolutely say we need to support them. 100%. This cannot be allowed to happen. As far as I know, in the history of CUPW and all the back to work legislations we've had over the last 40 years, they have never once threatened to use the notwithstanding clause. Because that is not just screwing with your job, that's screwing with your rights as a person. That's screwing with your fundamental rights, your legal rights, your humanitarian rights. That means that, in theory, they could pass the law, and if you violate it, they could come and bag you in the night and make you disappear. Because you have no legal rights, you have no humanitarian rights, and you have no fundamental rights. That's why we need to stand with them. So I need you to think about that. One way or another, I will be there to help the teachers. I hope you will be too. Have a great day.